Hi, Fraser MM0EFI, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the island of Mull. We come here every October. We're part of the safety team for the rally, which we really enjoy because it's mental. And then we stay on for a week, and it's the one holiday of the year where we probably get a chance to just chill out and do what we want. We do some walking, I do a couple of sota, Mo does some of our crafts and our hobbies, and we just enjoy the peace and quiet. And it does give me a chance to experiment, and I've always wanted to build a 40-metre vertical antenna. My YouTube friend Brian has great success. He lives in New Zealand and he's always working into Europe since. I also brought a box of bits. Which mainly is some antenna wire, some guy rope, a little pulley, some basic tools and a measuring tape, which is only 5 metres long. So I did some research on the internet, as you do, and I think we know that a 1/4 metre vertical, which mainly is some antenna wire, some guy rope, a little pulley, some basic tools and a measuring tape, which is only 5 metres long. So I did some research on the internet, as you do, and I think we know that a 1/4 metre vertical for the 40-metre band is going to be around about 10-metre length, so plenty of length on this mast. It's going to need a lot of radials, and I know that the bigger the radio field, the better it will be in terms of low SWR and, you know, quite a low takeoff angle, sort of 20 degrees or something like that. So what I'm going to do is I've got my reel of green sota beam wires. It's the thicker stuff. I've never actually used this before. I've had it for a couple of years, and it's 50 metres. So that means that I've got 10 metres for the radiator, and the other 40 metres, I'm going to use it all, it's going to be used for making some radials up. And it's just going to be a basic portable antenna. It's not designed to be a permanent installation, but if you like what I do in this video, you'll easily be able to make this permanent by burying radials in the grass or something like that. Then we're going to test it. We're going to test it maybe using Whisper overnight, and then a QRP radio, and then a higher power radio, and see what it reveals. So watch on. Let's see if we can have some fun on 40 metres and maybe try and get some DX. Okay then, just before I get going with the antenna design, I'm going to make my life a little bit easier with the mast erection this time. So I've got a little pulley here. I think it came from a ship's chandlers. It's a stainless steel thing. And that's a snug fit on the top of the mast, and the yellow string is just some sota beams guy wire, and I've done enough to run up and down the mast. So hopefully be able to hoist my wire and then take it up and down without putting this darned mast up and down more than once. Anyway, it's a lovely afternoon for this, even if it doesn't work. I'm still having fun being outside. Well, that was pretty straightforward. It went up first time. Here's my carefully cut and measured 10.05 metres of sota beam wire. So folded a good bit of this back, over a foot, 30 centimetres. That will give me room for adjustment. It won't affect the resonant point of the antenna at all. So I'm just going to put a bit of tape on that, put one of these little plastic carabiners on it, and then I will attach to my yellow sota beams wire and we'll hoist it up. Now I'm going to have to make some radials, and I was raking about my shed before I left. This is builder's band, which is just thin, I don't know if it's steel or aluminium, used for nailing battens to walls and stuff. It's got lots of holes in it. I thought I could just actually attach some radials to that quite loosely. Okay, quick recap. Vertical, just over 10 metres. I had 40 metres of wire left, so I've done 4 radials that are around about 10 metres long. Now, for a 1/4 wave vertical, we know the ideal situation is an infinite number of radials, i.e. a big massive ground plane. That's why people put mesh under their grass, etc. I've got 4. I think it'll still work. If it doesn't work, I will reduce it to 1 or 2 and have them elevated by 2 meters, because I've got plenty of height to raise the actual radiator another couple of meters as well, and have an up and outer kind of thing, maybe even just one like that. You've probably seen my video with the 20 meter upper outer where it worked really well. So in a classic case of me being not well prepared and this being a last minute job, I had a little box of M6 nuts and bolts which I was going to use to just strap the wire to these. It's probably still sitting in the shed, so I'm just going to thread it through PVC tape and then we'll connect the coax up. I'm not going to be running a megawatt through this, so it's not really going to be much of a concern. The other thing to bear in mind as well, a centimetre here or there with the wire length on the 40 metre band is just a fraction of the wavelength, so that's also not too critical. Nice grassy, wet ground or moist ground here, so I'm quite confident it's going to work. The aim of keeping things as simple and as rough and ready as possible, I've done a couple of things now. So I just used one plate to connect on my radials. They're threaded through it multiple times and then taped, so a good connectivity there. And then I'd raked around my spares box. I found one connector and I've used that for the radiator, so that goes up the pole. And that just pushes into one of these little adapters, and I've actually just threaded the negative side of that through my ground plate. Let's hook up some coax and see how this thing measures out. Right then, we can see there's a 1-to-1 match at 6.7 megahertz, which says it's a little bit on the long side, eh? So I think we'll give it a wee trim. Not a trim, but I'll drop it and I'll fold another 20 centimeters back over and we'll try it again. Okay, that was 2 quick trimming sessions, 20 centimeters and then 30 centimeters. 20 centimeters gives me 2.0 SWR right at the top of the UK or EU section of the band at 7.2 megahertz. Took an extra 10 centimeters off, remembering to do the radials as well. And I've now got a low SWR at the bottom of the band and 1.8 right at the top end of the band, which is absolutely perfect. I don't want to take any more off of this because ultimately it is supposed to be a quarter wave. SWR is one thing, but resonance and having the right wavelength to get the radiation pattern is obviously another thing. So I'm pretty happy with that. Now, I did bring some radio kit with me this week. I have got my Whisper transmitter, I've got my QMX, and I've got my FT857. So plenty of options for using it on 40 meters, on Whisper, on FT8 or some digital modes, and then on SSB. It's all about how much time I've got and how much time I can be bothered putting into this. So let's start off with some Whisper. This is a Zac Tech Whisper transmitter here. It puts out a couple of 100 milliwatts from, I think, 80 meters up to 10 meters. I pre-configured it before I left the house to 40 meters only. It needs a GPS to work with for 2 reasons. For timing, to make sure it's transmitting at exactly the correct times as according to the protocol, and also for the location. Now, it doesn't necessarily need it for the location. I could have configured the location in when I was sitting at home, but I didn't. So we'll get this hooked up. Need an SMA adapter and a USB micro connector to power it. Again, keeping things simple, what I've done here is I've just hooked the Whisper transmitter up to a little power bank, and the GPS dongle's just hanging over the wall here. It's all inside my box of bits and pieces, and I'll just close that up and leave it sitting on this chair overnight, and that'll stop any condensation getting it. It isn't due to rain, but you know, the dew point might be quite low with it being October. And when the transmitter gets a GPS lock, it'll then start transmitting on the Whisper cycle, and it'll keep doing that every 2 minutes or whatever the protocol is. The experiment was slightly curtailed last night. There were some sheep came into the field, and my health and safety manager, i.e. Mo, told me to take the antenna down to save the guy ropes getting eaten and it falling on the house. Quite a good move. So it's down at the moment. I'm going to put it up tonight, and we'll try and see if we make some QSOs. But in the short time it was up, which was only an hour, there was an absolute plethora of signals received. And then when I filtered For anything over, I think it was 2,000 or 3,000 kilometres, you could see it was heard down in the Canary Isles, and that was kind of like around the grey line time of evening, where it's dusk here and dawn down south. And I've got the roll wave whip with me, remember that? Video somewhere. So this tiny little whip and counterpoise is tunable on 20 metres, 17 metres and 40 metres. So I've obviously set it to 40, I've got my power bank connected, and I've literally just turned it on. Right, we'll be back tonight. So here we are, it's about 6:30 at night. The 40-foot vertical is there. I've got the little roll waves whip there. The roll waves whip is running the little Zactec whisper transmitter, and I'm running, please forgive me, FT8 on my F2 on my FT857 with the Raspberry Pi and my Android tablet. And I've really never tried anything like this before. I want to see if I can work some DX, and even if I don't, I'll be able to go into PSK Reporter afterwards and see where my signal was received. So I'm running 40 watts up into the quarter wave vertical for 40 metres. Let's see what happens. You might see some screenshots. I'm not going to subject you to minutes and hours of FT8. Now, the thing I should say is, you see water, you're thinking, oh, DX, vertical antenna, all that kind of stuff. Well, there's a line of hills to the south of me, there's mountains to the north of me, and to the east of me, and I've got a narrow loch inlet out to the west, so it's not the perfect DX by the beach spot by any means. Okay, a couple of quick updates. PSK Reporter says my 40 metre signal is being heard in New Zealand, which is fabulous. I've given up chasing stations and found my own little slot called CQ, and instantly worked Hungary, Germany, Sweden, and we'll just keep going, see if we can get anything further afield. Right, it's about 7:20 at night now. It's getting pretty dark here, and I think we're getting well into the grey line, if not past it. I'm not an expert. Working loads of European stations, checking on PSK Reporter, signal being picked up right in the north of Canada, Newfoundland, northeastern US, and then all over Europe, and still in New Zealand, but no one in New Zealand is showing on the waterfall yet. As for the little antenna over there, it's not doing anything. There's one station in Wales which is picking up the whisper. So we know whisper's good, but obviously when it comes to propagation, rather a little wire in the air is going to do better than a 1 metre whip on 40 metres, that's for sure. Well, here we are a couple of months later, and I was quite pleased with the performance of the antenna that night, but I kind of called it a day because it was getting dark, and I was determined to put the antenna up at home, and that's what I've just done. And it's a massively compromised situation compared to where we were down on the beach at Mull. I waited until the leaves came off the trees, and well, I could have made an hour-long video of me trying to get a throw line up a tree, but it's up now. And my little green wire comes down to exactly the same arrangement as it did before, because I'm just setting this up temporarily. I've got my 4 radials, however they're not symmetrical. There isn't one going in that direction because that's across a vehicle track. So I've got kind of one in that direction, one in that direction that does a 90. I've got a straight one that way, and I've got a straight one that way. So I'm going to get this up and running and have some fun with it over winter. And to see how we get on, you'll have to watch the next video about the 40 metre vertical. 7-3.